Good morning. Wow, that is a good morning, isn't it? Are you going to turn me down a little? Okay, thanks. That ought to wake everybody up. I will give a little bit of a preface first about my lesson this morning. I'm always a little bit perplexed when I do a lesson, but I'm also reporting on the work that I do in Cambodia, that you do in Cambodia, because I never know whether to just bring a sermon or to bring a report when I'm up there preaching. And so I've always tried to kind of mend the two together. So, and the reason I say that is because I was at a congregation, it's been a few years ago now, and I won't name the name of the congregation, but I was doing a report during worship service, which is what they had asked me to do. And then later a few couples took me out, older couples took me out for lunch, and one lady mentioned to me as we were eating, she said, "Do you know so-and-so, brother so-and-so?" And I said, "I don't believe I do." Well, now that guy could preach. And I thought, she's making a point with me somewhere along the line, but I'm like, I wasn't asked to preach, I was asked to give a report. But I say that just so that you'll know that when I get up and do a lesson, I hope that the lesson pertains to this congregation, but I also want you to know that I'm drawing my resources from a little bit of a different angle. So that having been said, this morning is for more of the reporting. And I have some slides that I want to show you. I will tell you that I just got back from my last trip about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so it's very fresh on my mind, and I am excited to be able to share the news with you. And I'm not starting the slides just yet because in my mind I want to make sure, positively sure, that you know how important you are to this work. It is you and Bear Valley who are the pillars of the foundation of this church and of this Bible school that we have going in Cambodia. I've been so blessed by being able to work with you. And so if you sometimes forget about how important your work is in the world as missionaries and supporters of people like me, I don't want you to forget that. I want you to be very aware of that, almost hyper aware of that, because as we sit in the pews, we sometimes just scan our card, we write our checks, we toss it in, and we forget about the work that you're doing. Because not everybody can go overseas like I can, or even out and about to other places, but you can do a good work. And Owasso, you are doing a good work. I can promise you that. So I will see if we can get this thing started. And as I went to Cambodia, I had a very unique trip this last time. Most of the time I will go over there and I will teach for a couple of weeks in class, in school. This was not one of those trips. This was a trip that had a bunch of different angles to it. I was able to go over and we did about 4 different things, and I'll walk you through them as we go through the slides. But this picture, I want to sort of, to me, evokes a little bit of the feeling of Cambodia. It's got beauty to it. It's got a little bit of loneliness to it. It's got a little bit of despair in it, because you can tell those are older swing sets and they're grateful for them, but the joy in these children is amazing, as it is with almost any children. But that's the same with the Cambodian people. It's all together in one, and I'm always blessed, and I get my cup filled when I get to go over there. So I'm going to walk you through this, and if you have, I thought this time I would show you how I always launch before I get on the big plane flight. That's important that you note the Chick-fil-A bag and the cup, because that's the last really good meal that Wes will have. I'll have good meals, and I'll have fellowship meals, but I've gotten to where right before I leave, I'm like, let's have a little bit of Chick-fil-A going before we go. So I thought I would just kind of take that picture for fun, because there is sometimes a rhythm, or there is a habit that we kind of get into, and that's one of them. You can't find Chick-fil-A over in Cambodia. And this one I took, just to let you know, this was the second of 3 flights. And as you can see that number there, that's how long that flight was this time over. I took a little bit of a different route this time and went to Singapore, and then when you add in the delays and stuff like that, it takes a long time. I would really, really love this work if I didn't have to travel all the way over there. But that's part of it, is traveling all the way over there. And so just thought that would be kind of fun and interesting. And then, as you can see right here, that we have a meal, and then the lights are out, and then we have a snack, and then the lights are on, and then we have another meal, and I think they skipped another snack in there. It is a long, long flight. And so when you're 6'2", you know exactly how long those flights are, because I don't get to ride up front, and that's okay, but it's a long flight. So when I first got there, we gathered together with about 90 or 100 different missionaries from all over Asia, which I had never done before. They had never hosted it in Cambodia, and so this was the first ever Asian mission forum that they had there in Cambodia. And so some of my brothers were hosting it, and I was asked to speak over there, but it was a real joy to be over there for about 3 or 4 days of listening to others talk about their works all over Asia, talk about their problems, talk about their successes, talk about solutions, talk about things that I know in my mind I've been over, and then sometimes I will think, wow, I wish I could give my problems to that guy, because he thinks, I think he could solve some of those things, and then he probably thinks to me, I wish we could swap problems and stuff like that. But as you guys know, and as ministers know, if there's people, there's going to be problems. And we love the people. Jesus loved us. We're a problem, but there's always problems. And so there's always having to be solutions and things like that. But it was a really, really good experience for me. The reason I took this photo, and I'll zoom in just a second, is because out in the courtyards, everywhere you go, over there in Cambodia, you will see, this is at nighttime, you'll even see the shrines to Buddha that are always lit up. There's always a reminder of Buddhism everywhere you go. So if you've forgotten, in Cambodia, it is about 99.6%, I think it may be a little bit less now, about 97 or 98% Buddhism, because the Muslims are coming in, and denominational Christianity is also coming in, so the numbers are skewed a little bit, but it's still about 97% Buddhism. But everywhere you go, you're reminded that Buddha is the king and rules down there, even though they don't even understand what that means. You just see these shrines everywhere you go. So even at the hotel, at the Asian Mission Forum, we will have these things, and they're lit up at night. And as I don't know if you can tell, but right there they have laid out food for the little idol of Buddha. And I joke about that and said, well, don't you think he would have liked some of the food that we had at the buffets there while we were at the Asian Mission Forum, and take him some of that stuff? But they would bring out some of this stuff, and it's amazing when you just sit and talk with them and say, what does he do with that food? I'm always kind of, trying to kind of get them to think, but also kind of teasing them in a way. So what does he do with that food? Well, he takes in that food. And I go, how does he take in that food? I want to ask them and get them to think, because they don't think about the carvings, about the man-made idols that we read about in the Bible, but that we also have in today's world. So getting them to think about those things. So it was a very, very good experience to be able to see that. There I am speaking, and like I said, there was about 100 or so that came, and beautiful experience. If you haven't ever been around other missionaries, you need to spend some time and just absorb the thought that there are people taking the Word of God out to those who have never heard about the Word of God. When I go to Cambodia, I know I've reminded you of this before, but there have been many times, every time now, that people have never heard the word or the name Jesus, and they've never even heard about God, and they don't know what a Bible is. And these are adults. These are people who are older. And so when we start from that, you need to be kind of aware when missionaries go over there. Some of them walk into a place where obviously Christianity's been rooted at some point, and there's a lot of knowledge, but there's other places where they know nothing at all, and that's where we have to start. So when you guys support, when you guys think about those things, when you're praying about those people, I want you to know that God is using that to be able to cultivate the ground so that missionaries can go over there and teach. So it's very important. And so this was one of the times I was given a report. That's where we met. So again, when I do mission work, this is not how I go and live overseas all the time. They had a really nice layout for all of us, and it was really cool to be able to do that. But this was just sort of my first time, and it was just once a year. And anyway, it was really, really good to be able to hear some of the methods that people use. I don't know if you can read that or not, but it says fungus salad with seafood. And I just thought I would show you about some of the fancy things that we get to eat over there. And I thought, oh, I'm going to take a picture. I did not get a picture of the fungus salad itself. That was just to save you for lunchtime. So you just go have your barbecue and that'll be fine. But we had fungus salad, but with seafood. So, it was very good. Not really. So also what we had here is we had, when I went over there, we had graduation for our school. And this is where you guys really come in because you are supporters of the school. They are getting ready for graduation. We graduated 6, I believe, and I have a picture here in just a second. And so they don't have much money at their school. And I know how much they have, and I tell them, you guys have got to learn to budget your money. They have enough. And so when I tell them they have to budget, they just find ways to budget their money. So what they're doing here is all of the students and some of the staff and their kids, they sit around together. They do everything together, which is very neat and also almost unique because when we as Americans, we almost always have a little committee do certain things. We don't always all get together to do the same thing. So that's why I took this picture, is because they all have a joyful time sitting around with each other no matter what they're doing, whether they're cooking for a group, whether they're getting plans ready, which is what they were doing. So they are getting ready for their graduation, and they are cutting out and making flowers because they couldn't afford real flowers, or they couldn't afford all the real decorations for, like we would maybe have for a graduation. They are cutting out flowers there, and they were singing songs, and they were having a joyful time. I'm sitting there, and I love to sit on the background, and I love to just listen to them. Even though I don't understand the language, I can hear the tunes in my head. They're tunes that sometimes we have as well as here, so I don't know the words, but I know the tune, and I'll hum along. But I love to sit just on the outside. It's a lot like if any of you are parents and grandparents, and your kids are playing, and you want them to continue to play, and you don't want to be involved, but you want to be close enough to listen to them play because of the joy. Excuse me. That's a lot what it's like for me. And so that's a lot of good, peaceful, joyful filling of my cup that I get to give. Excuse me. So this is how they decorated part of it up, and this is one of our graduates, and he is an MC, and he's a very good guy. And that I can't zoom in on that that I know of, but anyway, that is, they had every speaker for graduation had a little bio. Graduation each and every time gets a little better and a little better. They're starting to figure out how to run this thing really smooth. And the reason that they do such a good job, or one of the reasons they do such a good job, is we had almost 100 people come for graduation, and we had 6 graduates. Now, keep in mind that these people that come for graduation, they are very opposed to their children coming to this Bible school 2 and 3 years prior to that. And now they're all for it. We go out there and we talk with them. I go out there and I visit their homes, sit with their parents, talk with them as a family, ask them about their concerns about their kids coming to this school. And they view it as a cult when they first are there, and they don't want them to get away from Buddhism and tradition and all of those things. But in Cambodia, there really isn't a lot of future as far as vocations. There's not a lot of things to do for their kids. So when they grow up, there's just nothing but trouble and problems, just like we would have in many of our inner cities and even around here. So by having this school, we have changed not only the lives of the students and the directions, not only for eternity, but also here on earth. And so that gets the attention of the parents. That gets the attention of the grandparents. And they're like, our kids have changed, and we're getting a lot of teenagers, and we're getting a lot of in the mid-20s, and you can see the direction and the path of their lives changing, and the parents can see it, and so they're very grateful. So when we have 100 come to our graduation, it's a big deal because they're coming from villages that were completely opposed. They had done away with those kids. They had said, don't come back to the villages, and now they're being welcomed back after they graduate from school, and they're being given the opportunity to teach the Bible and to preach to them as well. So the reason I bring this photo up right here, The girl on the right, well, both of them, those are sisters. I don't know if Uncle Paco's Tacos have got to me this morning or what, but that's a good place, by the way. If you haven't eaten at Uncle Paco's, that's good stuff. Anyway, those girls are both orphans, and they are sisters. And they both grew up in our orphanage over there, and then they both graduated from the Bible school. And so what's unique about that is you'll see on this picture, the girl on the left, that's the same girl that was on the right in the previous picture. And I've known her since she was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And so those are our graduates that we just had. And so we had a big graduation. And the guys, I'll talk a little bit more about this during worship service, but those 3 young men right there have all graduated, and they want to continue their education, which is interesting because that's usually the last thing people want to do when they graduate is to go to more school. They want to continue their graduation, and they want to go out to a village that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, and they want to teach, but they need more education, not only Bible knowledge, but they want to have education in the English language so that they can bring in the village kids, teach them English using the Bible. And so that's a way into the village to be able to do that. That's sort of, if you will, that's sort of the hook that brings some of them in, is to say, we're going to teach you English, but we're going to use the Bible. Okay. And then they start learning. Thank you so much. And then the young man on the right, he's a little bit older, a very, very intelligent, very smart man, was a teacher, lost his job during COVID, and so he came to the Bible school and he graduated. And I think if it's like a lot of our students that we have come through at Bear Valley, you can tell when some of them come in kind of young and arrogant, thinking they were raised up in the church and that they know all the answers and they're going to go to school and they're going to let the professors know where they're wrong, people like that. He was one of those guys. And he was going to be, because he speaks 2 or 3 languages, and he thought he knew everything. And so for the first year, and even when I would Zoom with him on class every week, I would make sure that I would talk to him, and I would say, do you know the answer to that? Because he loved to give the answer when he knew the answer, but when I knew he didn't know the answer, I would call on him, and he would say no. And so there was a humbling curve that we went through, a lot like we do at Bear Valley. We're not trying to break them down, but there's a natural progression to let them know that we can give them some help and some wisdom. And so he now is a very humble man, willing to teach and willing to help out in any way that he can, furthering his ministry. You'll notice that the 2 girls are still hanging on to their certificates. And the reason that they're hanging on to their certificates is because that means a lot to them. That's a lot of hard work to get those certificates. I think I have another picture here in just a second of them. They would have their whole families come up and all point at the certificate. I mean, it is a very special deal. Sometimes for us, we forget how big of a deal it is to not know anything and then to be able to graduate. And it's not easy to go to school and to study and to take all those tests when you know nothing about it. The young man in the middle is going to be a very special guy. He's got the camera hanging around his neck. His name is Benjamin, and I've known him since he was about 12 or so, and he's about 18 now. He's currently going through the Bible school, and for graduation, he brought 5 of his college friends to the graduation, all very intelligent, all very outgoing, unusual for Cambodians. But he is running with a crowd that is interested in learning more about Christianity rather than just taking Buddhism as this is what we have, this is what we'll be, they're not into that. They want to understand more. And so they told me that they would come back, and if I go over there, I'm going to make sure I get them all rounded up. But they're inviting community as well as not just saying who can come to school, but they are asking other people and inviting them to show them this lifestyle that is different than the norm in Cambodia. We are also having Christians marrying Christians. I know I've mentioned this before, but we continue to be blessed with students marrying students. The young lady there, her older sister graduated about 6 years ago, and both very highly intelligent. They just haven't been given the opportunity to study and be educated. And so she's come over here, come to the Bible school just like her sister did. And then that is her fiance. So I have to tease them a little bit anytime you ask them about who do they like. They get all shy and everything, but I said, so are you and Vasal, her name is Duan, and I said, Duan, are you and Vasal going to get married? And boy, you could see everybody lean in for the answer. And, they would both smile and laugh and chuckle and that kind of thing. And I said, well, why aren't you getting married? She said, well, we will when he can afford me. So that was her answer. But they do have sort of a system over there where he will have to gather up some money and he'll gather up some things and have to go talk to her father, and then they will barter and go through that whole process. So it's they've now kind of laughed about it, but it's still real, and so they will have to do that. But it's Christians marrying Christians. As you can see, one of our graduation photos there, they're all pointing to the certificate like they all played a big part in getting that certificate for that one graduate. But the fact of it is in a way they have, and in a way you have. You've played a part in being able to teach them something that's very, very important to them. To be able to listen to them, we gave each one of those graduates an opportunity to speak for a little bit afterwards. And that young lady with the blue dress on there holding the certificate, she struggled through school. She didn't want to really go through school. She was a very good, what would you say? She was a great soccer player, and she played for the national team, and she just had a different life, but she continued to plow through. And eventually she started learning the importance of the bigger picture, the spiritual things. It wasn't just all about going and playing soccer all over the country and doing some of those things. And so in a way, you guys continue to support things that you don't know about. So that's why I'm letting you know some of these little stories. So these are some of the families that you've affected in a positive way. Those adults there, they are past students. They now have two just gorgeous little girls that just make you smile every time you look at them. He is a preacher out in the village, and they also work at the orphanage for support. And then that is another family. The lady in the middle is the one, I don't know if I was able to explain to everybody. It's been a while, but we lost a brother, Vanak, and that was her husband. And those are her two, their children on each side. And I don't know who the three little kids are. I got to be honest with you. There's 100 little kids running around all the time, and they're always getting their picture. And I can't keep up with names or relationships or anything like that. But you can see those flowers in the background. That was those paper flowers that they were cutting up on the floor earlier. And then this is my two co-directors and their wives, who are absolutely invaluable to the work. I could go on and on about all of that. And I think that I have, this is where, so this is on the rooftop of our church building / school building. And that is my co-director, Dorat, who has all the charisma in the world, two beautiful little kids. And they both, him and his wife, both speak some English. They take good care of me when I'm over there. But they live up on the roof. They had a place out in the country, don't have much money. And he came up there, but he's always smiling, and he's always laughing, he's always joking, and he's always teaching. And he's always out in the public teaching. It's an amazing guy. And he was just recently offered a different position that I know would pay a lot more. And it's the first thing he wanted to talk to me when I arrived. He said, I need to talk to you about something serious. And so he said, I've been offered another job. It would be working with a Christian environment. And he said, I know I can affect them, but they were students. And in my gut, I was like, oh, I can't lose this guy. But I told him, I said, listen, you and God need to be on the same page. Wherever you think you can be more effective, that's where you need to be. And I said, you may go and you may get more money, but you'll never be loved as much as I love you and as much as the people love you. And I think that got to his heart. So he's going to stay, and his family's going to stay. But that's all their belongings, and that's where they live. And they sleep on that mat, and they don't have to pop up a tent. It's just the same all year round. Every once in a while, they have to put a blanket on. But it's a different way of living.
3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go. And so,
all right.
I'm hoping that this will,
Dorat,
you can hear this. There's some babies in the background. I'll go forward if you can't hear it, but I've asked him some questions so you can hear them talk just a little bit.
I'm on the right track.
I think it's about how we get the Bible.
That kid is fine, by the way.
The subject is, we have a lot of that proof the Bible is from God through fulfill the prophecy and history and everything that make me like clear in my.
That's what made sense to you.
Yes,
Oh, that's great. Seth, what about you?
My subject in the Bible, I love the book of John.
Ah, me and you both.
Yeah, as I told you before. I love the book of John.
Why do you love the book of John?
You know, in the whole Bible, we know like the book of John tells us about the love of God. It's like John 3:16.
Yeah.
16, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, in my life, my father, like, he passed away since I grade 4. So I leave my mom to another place that far, and I have no love. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Me and you, we love each other. We love John. Why do you love your jobs? Cassette, tell me why you love this job.
It is, you know, my whole life is for God, so I cannot do anything without serve God. So I love, yeah. And even my family told me to do something, earn money, but I chose to serve God.
Yeah. Just try.
I love this job because you know I'm very happy that I have a small part in God's work and I can work with you. So, and it's my pleasure and I'm very like excited and because just like I told you I like to teach and learn and like to go to meet people. So you know me, I talk a lot. I like to go to the people and talk and help people, especially let them know about God.
One more thing that I would like to tell you, like in Cambodia, like a lot of souls, but they did not know God. So that's why we love and we can go to preach and share the word of God. And especially like we train the young people can go to preach and teach us.
Okay, so tell me where you guys think the future of the school. What are your plans or your goals in the future for this school?
It's hard to tell. You know, we just graduate for the student. Some students they just graduate. We would like the school to inspire a lot of young men to love and to learn gospel and to share gospel by go and tell them it's.
So tell me, is the school running good? You think the school's working good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've grown, but how do you see us going in the future? Are we going to do the same thing, or how do you want to maybe make this better? How can you make the school better? Do you know?
We like we want now at school we only have 2 hours to teach.
Yeah.
And we're looking for some people that can teach and come to like make the school strong and grow, and also can find people that can go and share.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else? So this is for probably the extension retreat, but it may go out to other people as well, I don't know. But that was my intention, for it to go out into the extension retreat. And so I want you to know how much I love these guys. These are my little brothers. They have grown on my heart. Yeah. it just gets sappy after that, so I'll skip on. Anyway, I hope you could hear them talk about how they thought the direction of the church, of the school that they wanted to go. They just told me, I just had a lesson with them Thursday night, and they told me that they have 4 new recruits for the Bible school, and so I hope that you'll be praying for them. If I told you their names, I would mess it up. You wouldn't remember it anyway. Just pray for the new students, pray for the existing students. We continually have 8 to 12 students all the time, which is a great number. But those are our 2 primary teachers in that school, and then I teach online. Oh, I wanted to back up one and just tell you real quickly that those 3 young men that I told you that were graduating, when I first started teaching over there with them, of course, they had never heard of Jesus and they hadn't heard of the Bible or anything like that. They couldn't look up. Their heads are down. When you'd ask them a question, I would make them make eye contact, and it was just the most painful thing you'd ever seen anybody have to do, is to make eye contact. And now these guys are up preaching with boldness and with courage. I doubt they're anything like Paul and his boldness and courage, but the travel that they've made in 3 years has just been amazing. Again, Owasso, you're to thank for that. Thank you for supporting this school, which is just making preachers out of young men who didn't know anything about it, and their hearts are in it. You can tell just by that photo that he is up there with confidence in his lesson and with what he's talking about. And they're up there leading singing. And then this is the road to Run Ta'ai. It looks like Ta'ek, but it's pronounced Ta'ai. And I'm going to have to go fairly quickly through this, but what's happened over there in Cambodia just in the last 4 or 5 years is that the Cambodian government has decided, in all of their infinite wisdom and with the Chinese money behind them, that they now want to remove a lot of the villages that are close to the Angkor Wat temples because they think that it's not good for tourism. So now they are just making people move where generations and generations of people have lived. And so what they're doing is they just cleared a place in the jungle and said, here you go. And so our students have found out that that was happening, and they started traveling out there about 6 to 8 months ago, meeting with some houses and teaching them about God's Word, and what a great opportunity that was for them. So that was on our way out there, and I got to go out there 3 times while I was there. This is where we met. We drove up. This is how a lot of people get there. And then you can see some of the folks that would gather around, and we would teach them about God and about the Bible. Little children, we would sing songs with them. And I laughed. I loved this guy. He would laugh at me and my hair and lack of hair, and I would laugh at his and his lack of hair and teeth and everything else. So we just had a good time out there, but I loved making friends with them. And when you can go 3 or 4 times in a row, you begin to build a trust. But they look at me differently, and so I have to be careful about what I say and how I act, but I also want to let them know that I'm not some grand poobah from the United States, that I am there to teach them about God. So we had a fellowship meal, and and this was all provided by our students who have, like I said, they're learning to manage their money, and so we're going to provide a meal for them, and each time we would have a lesson. Some of these are a little dark, but some of these people are just as poor can be. Very grateful for the food. Little children. The reason I took this picture is because in the background, that's their play area, and it is just muck and mire. It is not healthy. It is not good. And yet the smiles on those children make me think about what's important. We made each other laugh. We can't speak the same language, but you can always laugh the same language. This guy right here was kind of the chief of the village, and if you kind of got his approval, then everybody else could relax and learn to listen and speak and be taught. And that was his 7-year-old daughter. So I thought that was interesting to have I think he was 76, and he had a 7-year-old daughter. But this is the group that we had at Rung Ta'ai. And so for 3 days, and so now they are being taught every Sunday after worship. Our students will go out there and they will have worship service, and they will teach them everything that they're needing to go to be converted. And there are a few in there who know some Bible. This is a house out there that is in that village. So it looks like it's, West Texas out there, but it's not. In the background, you can see kind of a dark hill. That used to all be forest, and they just came and just mowed it all down and started putting up 10 buildings. But our 3 young men who want to teach that just graduated, they found this little tin building. They found the owner of it. There's a fan and there's power in there. And people, you're looking at the whole deal right there. And so they want to go out there and they want to set up a school in that shop, and he's going to allow them to do that. And 1 or 2 of them are probably going to just live out there. So that's the dedication that these young men that you're training have out there. This is Hannah's Hope, the orphanage that we're associated with. They had their 15th anniversary, and so the blessing of having 45 to 50 kids come to our worship service, there is a load full of energy every time we meet, and so it's wonderful. But they're also growing up knowing Jesus rather than having to learn it when they're 35 and 40 years old. We had a nice fellowship meal at that, and I had to take a picture of this kid. That's not a fake frog. It was huge. But they will do anything for entertainment. And like I said, all you have to do is look around and think about people's eternity before it hits your heart. The first 7-Eleven I've seen over there in Cambodia, I was so excited. And then when I walked in, it was nothing like our 7-Elevens. They have a sewing machine. We were able to afford to get them a couple of sewing machines so that Durat, the guy that was doing most of the talking there, his wife, she is an accomplished seamstress, and she's going to school, but she's teaching all of the girls that go through our Bible school how to sew, and she is excellent at it, but she's teaching them as they go through school so that they'll have some kind of a skill set when they leave, and so they can support the work at the church, and so that they can do what they need to do to be members, but also not have to go get secular work and move away from the church and all that kind of stuff. I thought this was funny. I'd never seen the word travelator before, but this is the end of the slideshow this morning, right on cue with the buzzer, which just happened to work out for no reason on my part. But the end of the travelator, airport after airport, you have to think, man, is this the end? Is this the last time that I'll get to go? If it is, I try to make every trip count. And every lesson I teach, I now understand the importance teaching, because it might be the last lesson that they get to hear. You never know when you're going to get to shut down. You never know when it'll be your last time. And so hopefully it never will be, and hopefully you will continue to work and partner with God and myself in this wonderful work. So I commend you very much, Owasso. I know it sounds kind of like a broken record, but it's the truth. So I get to go back. In fact, Thursday I was all excited telling them on Zoom about I get to go talk to Owasso, and I get to show them your pictures, and I get to tell them what you've been doing. What you've been doing. And so they got all excited. Tell them hi. And so hi. I say, Susadai from Cambodia. So I think that's it. And we never say goodbye. So we will be, as I will talk about, I think in worship service, we'll all be together someday. That's going to be one of the most beautiful, rewarding things that I can think of. Thank you for your time. I think that's it.